Hello, my dear friends. This week's Haftarah is so powerful and meaningful. It's known as, the Shabbos is known as Shabbos Nachamu because we read the Haftarah of Nachamu Ami. It's one of the 7 Haftarahs of Nachamu, of Consolation, that we read after Tisha B'Av. And this year, we so much need Nachamu. After 21 months already, the amount of pain and anguish and suffering that we've all experienced, and each day it's just more piling up one on top of each other. Each day we open the paper or the news and we see a picture of another member of Tzahal, beautiful young men, full of chen and charisma and a smile, and their life was snuffed out for what? For what reason? And the 1,200 people that perished on October 7th, and the trauma for the country with the hostage situation, that the entire country is gripped by the concern and compassion and care for the hostages, and the anti-Semitism that we've witnessed the last 21 months throughout the world, and all the acrimony and the accusations and the demonization of the Jewish people and the lies. It's been so painful and horrendous. And here, so we're reading the Haftarah that speaks to us. It says, Nachamu, Nachamu Ami. What does this Haftarah mean? Nachamu, Nachamu Ami Yomer Elokechem. Be consoled, God will say. First of all, what does it mean, Yomer Elokechem? What does it mean, God will say? Be consoled is now, not God will say. So the Mefarshim explain that God is talking about, Yeshayahu is prophesizing that in the future, when Mashiach comes, Yomer Elokechem, God will say to the Nevi'im, go to the Jewish people and say to them, Nachmu, Nachmu Ami, be consoled, be consoled. The question is, why does it repeat? Why does it say Nachmu, Nachmu? You should just say Nachmu Ami. All the Mefarshim ask this, all the commentators ask this question. There's scores of answers. Here's what I would say. When you're Menachem Avel, it's not enough you go to the house and the person's sitting Shiva and you talk to the person for 15, 20 minutes about the nifta, the person passed away, and then you say, Hamakim Menachem Eschem. You're Yotzei the halacha of being Menachem Avel, but you're not finished, because you can't be Menachem a person in 15 minutes. So a week later, you should call the person and ask them, how you managing, how you doing at this difficult time, and then especially if a person lost a spouse, and then you meet the person in the supermarket and you say, I was so moved by the description of your father or your mother or your brother or your sister. The process of nechama is ongoing, and the person's an oval for a whole year because the pain remains. So if that's true for an individual, that nechama it has to be repeated over and over again. So how much more so for Klal Yisrael when they've suffered for 2,000 years since the Churban of Beis Hamikdash, the pain and the suffering and all the persecutions, the Crusaders and the Inquisition and the pogroms and the Holocaust. And now, the events that occurred on October 7th, there's so much pain for Klal Yisrael. So when HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when the Mashiach comes and HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells the Nevi'im to be Menachem Klal Yisrael, you can't be Menachem them in one moment and just say, Nachmu Ami, console the Jewish people. It's Nachmu, Nachmu. And Nachmu, it says it twice, but to me it doesn't mean twice. It means repeat. Repeatedly, you should be Menachem them. Because the trauma has been so profound that you have to, the nechama has to be given over and over again. Nachmu, Nachmu Ami Yomer Elokechem. And that's true not only of all the events that Klal Yisrael endured for the past 2,000 years, but it's true of the events of the last 21 months, that the Rebbeinu Shalom will tell the Nevi'im, Nachmu, Nachmu Ami. You have to be menachem them, and it's not enough to just say nechama one time. It has to be repeated over and over again. And then the next pasuk says, Dabru el lev Yerushalayim. Speak to the hearts of the people in Yerushalayim. Why? Because nechama is not an intellectual exercise. You don't achieve nechama by telling a person the Dvar Torah. You could put it in the context of our Torah, but you have to be able to connect to the person's heart, because the tragedy is an emotional issue that the heart feels. The heart is wounded, so therefore the nechama has to be to the heart. Dabru alev Yerushalayim, v'kiro alel. What does that mean? It means call to them. What do we have to call to them? It means because sometimes the people are so traumatized that they don't even want to hear nechama. You go over and say, I have words in nechama to tell you. They say, I can't listen to nechama. So the Navi says, Kiro alel, call after, if they running away, call them and tell them, here the Rebbeinu Shalom sent us that we should give you nechama, the words in nechama for Klal Yisrael. So the question is, so what is the nechama going to be? There's so much suffering that has taken place for the last 2,000 years, so many horrible events. So what it will God's nechama be? God's going to instruct in the Nevi'im, Nachmu Nachmu Ami, Yom HaKechel. God will tell them in the Nevi'im, go be menachem. What is He going to tell them? So I of course I have no idea, because God didn't tell me, or He didn't tell anybody else either what the nechama is going to be. We know there'll be a nechama, but what will it be? But I think that in the pasuk it's alluded what one element of that nechama will be, and that is the pasuk says, Nachmu Nachmu Ami, console my nation, my people, and that is a tremendous nechama. When we understand that God views us as His nation, as His people, God loves us, and God has an enormous sense of pride in Klal Yisrael, because look at the Jewish people, how they have managed to survive for the last 2,000 years with all the persecutions. You would have thought that everybody would run away, they would not want to be part of, they would defect from Klal Yisrael. But the Klal Yisrael is here, and it's strong, and it continues to grow, and that's a source of pride for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's a pasuk that the Gemara says that the Rebbeinu Shalom, when he puts on tefillin, the pasuk says, "Umi kamcha Yisrael gayachad ba'aretz." Who's like the Jewish people? They're one nation. That God is proud of being the Rebbeinu Shalom of Klal Yisrael. And there's another pasuk in Yeshaya that says, "Vayomali avdi ata Yisrael asher b'chol aspar." God says, "You are my servant. I am proud. I will make myself proud through you. Asher b'chol aspar. I will boast." The same way like a parent talks about you meet somebody at a chassan and they say, "Oh, you want to see a picture of my grandchildren?" And they take out the picture. They're so proud. The Rebbeinu Shalom says, "Asher b'chol aspar." I am so proud of Klal Yisrael. They are such an unusual and remarkable people. So that's going to be a tremendous nechama, that the Rebbeinu Shalom is going to express to us the fact that we are His people. And you know, when a child is hurt, who does a child run to? They run to a parent. More than anybody else, a parent is able to console a child, a father or a mother. The Rebbeinu Shalom will reveal Himself as our parent, Avinu Malkeinu. He is our Father, and therefore He will be able to provide nechama to us. We are His children. We are His nation. So we will be entitled to go to Kadosh Baruch Hu and say, we need nechama. We have suffered so much in the last 2,000 years. One of the great elements of Klal Yisrael, in spite of everything that's been going on, is the unity that you see in Klal Yisrael. Like the pasuk says, "Mi kamcha Yisrael gayacha ba'aretz." Who's like the Jewish people, that they're one united nation. Now I know the Jewish people are in many ways are divided. There's so much machlokas in Eretz Yisrael with the political parties and the Chiloni and the Dati, and the different factions. There's so much fighting. But I'll tell you one thing: in spite of all that, there's still tremendous achdus. It's still Goyachad Ba'aretz. It's still one unified people. Because look how all of Klal Yisrael, from around the whole world, everybody is connected to what's taking place in Eretz Yisrael. Everybody is worried about the hostages. All of Klal Yisrael. We don't know the hostages, and we don't know the people that died in the war. We don't know the soldiers who have been displaced who are away from their families for months at a time. We don't know the people that died on October 7th. But we all feel a part of the tragedy, and we feel part of the experience. That's because there's an underlying unity of Klal Yisrael, even if we may be divided politically or religiously. But deep down, It's our people. It's our nation. You know, in America, there's also been hostages in other countries as well, in Russia and in Iran, different places. But you don't have that same trauma of the entire country worrying and caring and being in pain over the plight of the hostages, the way you have with Klal Yisrael. This past week, you know, there was this riot in Cincinnati, and I made the big mistake of watching a video, and it's just unbelievable. It was horrendous. There were two people that were beaten up. One man was repeatedly knocked over, and then they were jumping on his head over and over again. And then there was a woman who was knocked unconscious, and you probably saw the pictures of her the next day. Her face was so distorted, it looked grotesque. It was such a tremendous rachmanus of what happened to her. And what amazed me is that there were about 100 people that were witnessing what was going on. And how many people called 911? One person out of and what were the other people doing? Some of them were involved in the fight, but there were many people who were there with their cell phones and they were filming like it was a prize fight, and they were filming it and then they were posting it on Instagram or wherever. It's unbelievable. I can't imagine. No, Americans are wonderful people. We're so fortunate to live in a democratic country where there's laws and there's righteousness and there's concern for people. But in spite of that, you see, you can have 100 people and only one person called 911. Klal Yisrael, we are so unified about what's happening in Eretz Yisrael. All of Klal Yisrael cares. Everyone around the world for people that we don't know, we never met them, and that's the greatness of Klal Yisrael. We saw this week the horrific image of Aviatar David, who's been a hostage for 21 months, and he's in a tunnel in Gaza underground, digging his own grave. Hamas put out a video cynically that he's digging his grave, and he's as emaciated as a Holocaust survivor. I'm sure whoever saw that, whichever Jewish person saw that image, even the non-Jews, but certainly the Jewish people, it's seared in their memories. Such a horrific image of what's happening to a human being, to a precious neshama, to a precious soul. So the Ribono Shel Olam, when he comes to give nechama to Klal Yisrael, the Nevi'im are gonna say, it's Nachmu, Nachmu. God's gonna tell the Nevi'im, Nachmu, Nachmu, Ami. It's my people. It's my nation. And it's the nation, Asher B'cha Espar, who I'm proud of. I'm so proud to be the God of this people, because it's a people who are Goyachad Ba'aretz, who are united, and people who in spite of the whole trauma and travails of Golus, the Torah is still flourishing, and the Torah is still being learned, and the mitzvahs are still being done, and the shuls are overflowing with people, and the yeshivas don't have enough space because of the greatness of Klal Yisrael. And that is a tremendous nechama for Klal Yisrael. The nations of the world, when God will reveal himself and Mashiach will arrive, so what will the people, those that persecuted Klal Yisrael, what will they have? They'll have stockpiles of missiles, and they'll have drones that they use to bomb in Eretz Yisrael and around the world, and all the other instruments of destruction that will be in their hands. And what will we have when Mashiach will reveal himself? We will have a special relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through the Nevi'im, will say, Nachmu, Nachmu, Ami. Be consoled. My people, my children, you have suffered so much, and I am personally paying a Shiva visit to you to console you for everything that has happened to you in the course of the last 2 millennium. Let us hope in Mirz Hashem the situation there in Israel should turn upside down and turn around, and the hostages should be released ASAP today, immediately, and the fighting should stop, and there should be peace and security in Eretz Yisrael, and in Mirz Hashem, all the suffering that the Jewish people have been enduring should come to an end. Thank you for listening, and have a good Shabbos.